Hello and welcome to this video, how to install OWASP Nettacker on Kali Linux version 2021.1. My name is Sam Stepanyan, I'm an OWASP London chapter leader, and you can follow me on Twitter at SecureStep9. In this video, you will learn how to install OWASP Nettacker in Kali Linux for use with Python 2.7, how to install Nettacker in Kali Linux for use with Python 3.9, and how to install and run Nettacker in Kali Linux with Docker. First of all, if you don't know what OWASP Nettacker is, it is an awesome open source automated penetration testing and information gathering tool. You can find it on GitHub at https://github.com/owasp/nettacker. All of the OWASP Nettacker documentation can be found on GitHub Wiki. If you navigate to the Nettacker GitHub repository, you need to click on the Wiki tab in order to access the documentation, and the installation instructions are documented there as well, but in this video I will demonstrate the process to you, how to do it in Kali Linux. So OWASP Nettacker runs on Windows, Linux and macOS operating system, and Nettacker versions 0.0.1 and 0.0.2 are compatible with both Python 2 and Python 3. As you probably know, Python 2 is already end of life. However, it is still included in many Linux installations. It is also important to remember that OWASP Nettacker was written for Python 2 originally, and many of its modules can be a little bit more stable if you run them under Python 2. In this video, I will be using a Kali Linux version 2021, which is a pristine version which has just been downloaded and installed from the ISO image. Okay, so let's switch to my Kali Linux and log in. As I mentioned, this is a brand new, fresh installation of Kali Linux from the ISO image. So first of all, let's find out which versions of Python are installed on Kali Linux 2021.1. In order to find out Python version, let's first check what's the default installation of Python. What is the default version? For this, I'm going to run python -- version. And we can see that default Python in Kali Linux is version 2.7.18. We can achieve the same thing by running python 2 -- version, and you can see that it returns the same result. Now let's find out which version of Python 3 is installed. In order to do this, we're going to run python 3 -- version, and we can see that Kali 2021.1 comes with Python version 3.9.1+. Here are the steps required to install OWASP Nettacker. First of all, we need to make sure that we have Python installed. We just check that we have both Python 2 and Python 3. Step number 2, we need to install pip. Pip is the Python package manager, which is needed to install the required packages. Step number 3, we need to install operating system dependencies for Kali Linux, all the necessary libraries in order to be able to install Python dependencies. Then we need to download Nettacker. We can do it, for example, using git clone. And the last step, we need to install Python dependencies from requirements.txt file. Let's switch to our Kali Linux and do these steps. Okay, so first of all, we need to install pip. The thing that we will discover that if we try to type pip in Kali Linux, it will say command pip not found, but it can be installed using sudo apt install python 3-pip. Well, actually, because first of all, we're trying to install Nettacker using Python 2, we don't want the pip 3 for Python 3. We want pip 2 for Python 2.7. But how do we install it? Because Python 2 has now been discontinued, and it is no longer possible, for example, to install Python 2 pip. We can check that. So if I try to say sudo apt install python 2-pip, it will ask me to enter the password, and it will reply saying unable to locate the package python 2.pip. It is no longer shipped with Kali Linux because it has been discontinued. So How do we get it? So we need to download it using wget from bootstrap.py.io and making sure that we select pip version 2.7. And then we can just run that get-pip.py script on our Kali Linux. You will find this command in the description of this video. I'm going to copy it and I'm going to paste it in my Kali Linux here. Let me make the terminal window just a little bit bigger. Okay, we now have the script downloaded in our home folder. And now what we need to do, we need to run that script using Python 2.7, making sure that we are a system administrator. So it needs to be run with sudo command. So I'm going to run sudo python 2.7 get-pip.py. So what's going to happen now is the pip is going to be built. Okay, this is now done. And if I type pip, we will see that it is working. If I type pip2, we will see that it is also working. And if I type pip2 version, we will see that it is pip version 20, which is installed for Python 2.7. Wonderful. Okay, so what we need to do next is we need to install the operating system dependencies. So operating system dependencies are listed in the same place under OWASP nettacker documentation in the wiki. You just click on the installation here and we will find out that these are the packages which need to be installed on our machine before we can install nettacker. So let's just copy them one by one. So first we need to install libcurl openssl-dev. To do that we need to run sudo apt install, and that's libcurl for -openssl-dev package. Let's press enter and Linux is going to ask us if we want to download and install it. Yes. And you can see very quickly that package gets downloaded and installed. Next we need the package libssl-dev. Let's download it, install it. Okay, so next we're installing libssl-dev. So sudo apt install, and I want to install libssl-dev package. libssl-dev. Press yes to install. Yes, I want to install. It gets downloaded and installed. Okay, what do we need next? Okay, next we need to install Python dev and Python 3 dev. Okay, back in Kali Linux, let's install Python dev and Python 3 dev packages. Python dev. Yes, I want to install. Okay, it takes a little bit of time, and then we'll need to install Python 3.dev. Okay, you will notice that it gets downloaded, all the libpython 3.9, and you'll also notice that here the actual library which is being downloaded is for the Python 3.9.2. Why is it important? You will remember that originally when I ran the Python 3 version, it was Python 3.9.1 plus. If we do Python 3 -- version command now, you will notice that our Python has now been upgraded to version 3.9.2. And the last but not least command that we need is to install libpq-dev package. So let's install libpq-dev package. Sudo apt install libpq-dev. Okay, this is the last required package installed. Okay, the next thing that we need to do is to download nettacker. The easiest thing to do is to download it using git clone. So let's type git clone https github.com/owasp/nettacker. Okay, you will see how quickly nettacker gets downloaded and it is now in the nettacker folder, so let's change to that folder. If you run the list of files in this folder, you will see that this is the source code of OWASP nettacker, which is written in Python, and you will see the requirements.txt file, which lists all the Python dependencies that we need to install. So before we install this, so what we need to do, we need to install setuptools. A bit of a typo, I need to do install setuptools. Okay, we get the deprecation warning to say that it has been deprecated. That's fine, we're aware of it, but we will still be able to run nettacker with Python 2.7. Okay, now that we have setuptools installed, we should be able to run pip2 install -r, very important, and then requirements.txt. If we press enter now, pip2 will start downloading all the Python 2 packages required for nettacker. This will take some time. Almost done, almost done, almost done. Okay, it is successfully built. We get some warnings of some of the tools used by nettacker are not in the path, but this is absolutely fine. We will still be able to install it. There you go. We can see that all the packages are successfully installed, which means we are now ready to run nettacker under Python 2. In order to do this, I'm going to type Python 2 nettacker.py with no parameters. If I type enter, we will see that nettacker has started and showed us its usage instructions. There you go. Every time we will run nettacker under Python 2, we will get this deprecation warning about the cryptography package. There's just a warning from OpenSSL to tell us that Python 2 is no longer supported by the Python core team, and it's now deprecated and will be removed in the next release. Fine, but we will still be able to use it. Okay, before we run nettacker on a target for the first time, responsible use warning, reminder that OWASP nettacker can be used as an offensive security tool, and you shall not misuse this tool nor any other security tool for unauthorized access. And a reminder that performing security scans without written permission from the owner of the computer system is illegal. So I'm going to run one sample scan using nettacker just to show you that it works under Python 2 on Kali Linux. I'm going to run it on OWASP.org because OWASP.org participates in the bug bounty program, and security researchers are actually allowed to scan it. So I want to define the target. The target in nettacker is defined using -i command line option. I'm going to write OWASP.org as a target domain, and I want to use a module which is subdomain scan. Okay, let me press enter. And you can see that OWASP nettacker engine has now started. It loaded 72 modules, submitted the OWASP.org target to the engine, and you can see very quickly it found all subdomains of OWASP.org. And if we scroll up, we'll see that it discovered 36 subdomains. That's it. So OWASP nettacker is running under Python 2. The next thing that we want to do is we want to run it under Python 3. How do we do this? If I run pip3, you will notice that pip3 is not installed. But if you remember, Linux has actually kindly prompted us that we can run sudo apt install python 3 pip. Let's do this. Sudo apt install python 3-pip. It got downloaded, we have it. Now remember, with pip2 we had to install setuptools. Let's see if we need to do the same thing with pip3. Pip3 install setuptools. As you can see, the requirement is already satisfied. Let's actually check the version of pip3 before we move any further. Let's type pip3 --version. Okay, we can see that It's the same version, pip 2034, and you can see that it is installed for Python 3.9. Let's do the same thing for pip2, and you will see the difference, so that we have two independent versions of Python. We have Python 2.7 and we have Python 3.9 running in parallel on our Kali Linux. And that's why the next thing that we want to do, we want to be able to run nettacker under Python 3 in Kali Linux. So we already have all the packages installed. So if you, let's say you didn't want to install Python 2 at all, and you just wanted to install all the Python 3 dependencies, so you would run sudo apt install libcurl4 openssl-dev. Okay, and in this case we have it already installed. Then the next library is libssl-dev. Let's try installing it. It says it's already the newest version because we installed it a little bit earlier. Okay, the next thing that we need to install is the Python 3 dev. Okay, we already have it and it is the latest version. And the last thing that we need to install for Python 3 is the libpq-dev. So let's try to install it. Sudo apt install libpq-dev. Okay, we have all the dependencies now. Let's just verify that we have pip3 here. Yes. And now we can just install nettacker using pip3. So we repeat the same command, pip3 install -r requirements.txt. Okay, and now you will notice that the packages for Python 3 will be downloaded and installed. This will take some time, but very soon you will see the successfully installed message with a list of all the packages. Done. So now to run nettacker with Python 3, we just have to use Python 3 nettacker.py command, and if we press enter, we will see that nettacker runs and shows us the usage instructions. And if we repeat the same command that we did for OWASP.org subdomain enumeration, let's do the same thing now using Python 3. Again, I'm going to specify -i for the target. I'm going to provide OWASP.org as the domain I want to target, and the module I want to use is subdomain scan. Okay, let's press enter. And you will notice that nettacker ran very successfully using Python 3 command, and we got exactly the same output that we did with Python 2 version of OWASP nettacker. We can see here that nettacker, after it completed the scan, saved the results in this HTML file, and we can actually open this report file and check out what's inside by going into the web browser inside Kali Linux and just try to open that file here. There you go. This is OWASP nettacker penetration testing graph, showing us all the subdomains of OWASP.org in this particular scan. If you would like to learn nettacker more, please do check out other YouTube videos which are listed in the description of this video. Okay, and in the last part of this video, I would like to show you how to run OWASP nettacker using Docker. First of all, let's check if we have Docker installed on Kali Linux. If I type Docker, we'll see that it's not installed, so we need to install it using sudo apt install docker.io. So let's copy paste it and install it. Okay, this will take some time because Docker is quite a large package, and hopefully not too long. A few more seconds remaining, and once the Docker is installed, we need to have one more thing in order to build the container for OWASP nettacker. That is a Docker compose command. which again, as we will see, is not installed by default. So if I type docker compose, we'll see that it's not installed, even though Docker is installed. So we need to install Docker Compose separately. Let's do that. Let's copy and paste that command. Okay, this is going to take much quicker. And there you go. We should now have Docker Compose. I'm just going to accept the default prompts for the restarting of the system services. Okay, so let's try typing docker compose, and we can see that it is installed. Excellent. Okay, now we are already inside the nettacker folder. All we need to do is type docker-compose up, press enter. Okay, I forgot one thing, I need to run it with sudo. So let's run sudo docker compose up, and this command will now build our nettacker Docker container. You can see that the Docker version of OWASP nettacker currently is using Python 2.7 image, and it takes a little bit of time to download it from the Docker Hub. Okay, now nettacker is going to be built inside the Docker container. Again, this takes some time. We get the usual Python 2.7 deprecation warning. Okay, the build of OWASP nettacker inside the Docker container is now complete. It is now running, and it is actually running by default in the API mode or in web UI mode. You can see that it is running on HTTPS 000 port 5000, and this is the API key. So in order to access nettacker web UI, which is running inside our Docker container, we need to navigate to the localhost port 5000. Let's open our web browser inside Kali Linux, that's Firefox, and go to https 127.0.1.5000. Okay, we get the security warning because the SSL certificate is self-signed. Yes, we want to accept the risk and continue. And now the nettacker web UI is loaded, and you will notice that we can't do anything here until we log in. So let's paste that API key and click on set session, and we now should be able to access our previous scans. Okay, the web UI is running. I clicked on the results button, and you probably noticed that OWASP nettacker web UI actually loaded the two previous scans that I've already run using OWASP nettacker command line tool. You can actually see that this was the scan command which was used, right? And this was done using, if you remember, in Python 2, this was done in Python 3, and we had two scans performed. Let's now perform the third scan from the web UI. Web UI has this interface where you need to enter your targets here. Again, I'm going to use OWASP.org as an example, and I am going to do a server version vuln scan. Let me go and find the server version here. So server version vuln is a vulnerability type module, so it is color coded red, and I want to do this for every single subdomain of OWASP.org. To do that, I have to switch to the Advanced tab and click on Check Subdomains. So now I can click on Submit button and start that scan. And all we have to do now is wait for the scan to be completed. We can switch to the results window and then wait for the scan to be completed. Just need to click on the last updates, and you can see that the third scan is now ready. We can see that this scan was performed through the OWASP nettacker API, and You can see that there are 42 results in that scan. So let's click on it and have a look. There you go. This is the result of the server version val module, which was run on all the subdomains of OWASP.org. And we can also download the results using JSON and CSV command by just clicking on the relevant button. For example, if we want to download CSV, I'll just click on Get CSV and save the file. That's it. This is how quickly and easily we could actually run OWASP nettacker in Docker. Okay, thanks very much for watching this video. You can follow me on Twitter at SecureStep9, and if you like my videos, don't forget to subscribe to the channel.